Okay, let's dip back into Bob Dylan's history. I want to talk about a 1 year period from October of 1975 up to, let's call it Thanksgiving 1976. Now, you probably know this, but Dylan finished the recording of Desire in 1975 and decided to put together a tour. And this, of course, was the Rolling Thunder Review. Check out the Martin Scorsese kind of documentary that came out several years ago. I'm thinking like 5 years ago. I need to revisit that. Pretty sure that's available on Netflix. And then we get something that I just picked up this weekend at Driver 8 Records in Fort Collins. Something that's been on my radar for a long time. This is the Bootleg Series Volume 5, the Rolling Thunder Review. These are recordings that were taken from the fall 1975, the first leg of the Rolling Thunder Review. These are, many people think, the best live recordings that you can find in any iteration of Bob Dylan. I used to have this on CD. This is a really cool limited edition set, gold leaf foil. I think this was limited to 2,500. There are three 200-gram records in here. You can see the entire set list here. Again, split up over 3 records. This was done by Classic Records, top-notch quality, and the copy that I have includes everything that came with it. So a little reproduction handbill, 2 ticket stubs, which is crazy. And then we had the limited edition Tangled Up in Blue 7-inch, which was actually on a blue vinyl. And there you have it. I've been digging into this over the past weekend, really loving it. Again, I had it on CD, so I'm really familiar with it. You don't see that box set out in the wild very often, so I kind of jumped on it. Now, in 1976, the Desire album was released, but during the fall tour of 75, the leg 1, Dylan was doing a ton of songs from the forthcoming album. And, pre-internet days, there was less concern about, word getting out about an upcoming album and what was going to be on it. Just reading off the set list, we've got Oh Sister, we've got Hurricane, of course, One More Cup of Coffee, and kind of the magnum opus of Desire, Sarah. Remember, Dylan was really struggling in his marriage with Sarah Dillon at the time. It got worse as they moved into 1976, and the 1976 spring leg started in Florida. It ended in Salt Lake City, Utah. May 25th, I believe, was the last date in 1976. But as luck would have it, there was a gig here in Fort Collins, Colorado at the now defunct Hughes Stadium, which was the home of the CSU Rams. And we got an album in September of 1976, Hard Rain. Now, if you listen to the music on this record compared to the 75 leg, things have gotten a little ragged. Things have gotten a little rough. There's a hard edge there. And if you read interviews and accounts of the tour, Dylan was not really in the best of moods at that particular time in the spring, early summer 1976. And what kind of started at the top flowed through the rest of the band. Now, I think that had a really interesting effect on the music. And this record, if you listen to the opening cut on side 1 and the opening cut on side 2, you're going to hear a very cool version of Maggie's Farm on side 1 and then Shelter from the Storm on side 2. Shelter from the Storm on side 2. This particular version is probably my favorite live Bob Dylan song. He is playing slide guitar, which is a rare thing for Bob Dylan to do at that point in time. And he's also playing it on a very unique white National guitar. I'm going to show, I'm going to feather in some images from the concert. Now, that spring leg was troubled, as mentioned before, and they had a gig, I believe it was in Wichita, Kansas, and then they were going to be doing the concert in Fort Collins. Now, the CSU Hughes Stadium, I think, had a capacity of about 30,000 people. 27,000 people is the reported gate that day. There was a steady downpour, a very rainy 4 or 5 days in Fort Collins, and the band had a full 3 days off before they were going to do the Fort Collins gig, and this was going to be filmed and recorded for the planned release of the record in September, which would coincide with an NBC television, I think it was a 1-hour special. You can find it in its entirety, except for the one encore is not included in that 1-hour special. Of course, the encore that was done that day was A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, and for whatever reason, it's not on the record. And yet the name of the record is Hard Rain, which is apropos for the weather that day. I mentioned they had 3 or 4 days between Kansas and Fort Collins. They decided to kind of hole up in Estes Park, Colorado. Estes Park is a picturesque tourist town, about 45 minutes from where I'm sitting right here today, in the mountains. It's at the gateway of Rocky Mountain National Park. Estes Park is a beautiful little town. It is also famous for the location of the Stanley Hotel. That's the hotel where Stephen King resided for, I don't know how long it was, maybe a month, and he wrote The Shining there. Now, The Shining was not filmed at the Stanley. I think that was filmed at a location in Utah, but an interesting tidbit. Anyway, the band was holed up at the Stanley Hotel rehearsing. I think they did a full rehearsal of the show the day before, and then they kind of trucked back down to Fort Collins the day of the show. This concert, I believe, started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Roger McGuinn was the opening act. Of course, he was part of the Rolling Thunder Revue, along with, you name it, an incredible bevy of interesting characters. Everyone from Bobby Newworth, of course, was there, Joan Baez, Mick Ronson, lead guitar, T-Bone Burnett was there on guitar as well, and then, of course, Scarlett Riviera playing violin, as she did on the Desire album as well. This is a image from the concert, actually taken it was a still taken from the televised concert footage, and this is a really cool, one of my favorite shots of Dylan. This is a ragged, rough, and glorious record. It doesn't sound great. It doesn't matter because the music is so great. The renditions of these songs would really not be repeated. The next time Dylan toured, it was 1978. We get the Budokan double album, which has since seen a retrospective, I think there was a 3 or 4 record set that came out about a year ago now, maybe. But that's when he put together this huge big band, the kind of Vegas treatment to some of these songs. And some of them are just totally 180 degrees away from the Rolling Thunder Revue, whether that was leg 1 or leg 2. Now, the end of 1976. So he concluded the Rolling Thunder Revue tour May 25th, 1976, Salt City, The Hard Rain record would come out in September along with the televised concert from Fort Collins. And then we see Dylan pop up at The Last Waltz in November 1976. He did a 4-song set. I think he did a reprise of one song. That is magnetic viewing. You know, Dylan had his hair up in this kind of babushka during Hard Rain, and then he was wearing a white Stetson, I think a Stetson or something, at the Last Waltz concert. In his hair was just cascading. Anyway, magnetic viewing, and it was really cool to see him with the band 2 years on from that 74 tour that they did together. Now, I did happen to drive by the site of the old Hughes Stadium over the weekend. I took a little bit of footage. The stadium was raised in 2018. There has been disagreements over what they're going to do with that land. I think they're back now to it being natural open space. I know there's a disc golf course there now. But, you know, at one point in time, that was the CSU football stadium, and they now have a brand new stadium on campus for the last several years. Okay, so there you have it, a quick video talking about the history of the Rolling Thunder Review, 1 year in the life of Bob Dylan, October 75 to basically November of 76. The fall tour, well documented on Bootleg Series number 5. And then the spring tour, pretty well documented, and some incendiary performances from that show in Fort Collins. I think 3 songs from the Hard Rain album were actually recorded in Fort Worth, Texas, on a previous show in that tour before they moved on to Kansas and ultimately Colorado. But this is a great record if you haven't heard it lately. It's kind of, you know, a forgotten piece in the Dylan discography. If you've never heard it, by all means, at least check out, go stream the version of Maggie's Farm and Shelter from the Storm, Dylan on slide guitar, and just snarling his vocal. It is a breathtaking performance, my favorite version of Shelter from the Storm. Peace, everybody, and hope to be back pretty soon with something new and different.